Hi guys, hope you're well, and in today's little video I'm going to be talking about how do we overcome kind of the dieting mindset that we've been stuck in for a really long time whenever we're trying to overcome maybe emotional or binge eating, or just trying to heal our relationship with food and have a healthier relationship with food. So what do I mean by dieting mindset? Well, dieting mindset is kind of like all of I like to call it kind of the food police. And the food police is all the rules that we have in our mind associated with certain types of foods. So, for example, you might have, if you're used to kind of being on the diet and binge cycle, you might have certain foods that you perceive to be their green light foods. I can eat as much of these foods as I want because they are, super healthy. And so you might have lots of low calorie foods on there, fruits and vegetables, etc., etc. And then you might have other groups of foods that are bad, unhealthy, fattening, not allowed to eat. So when you embark on a diet, the idea behind your diet is I want to eat as many of these green foods as I can, and I'm not allowed to have these. So we get into this kind of situation then when we're kind of chronic dieters, is that we attach this sort of moral judgment to the food choices that we make. So we feel great and kind of smug when the diet's going well and we're eating all these good super healthy foods. And then eventually when we crack and we eat something that's not so nutritious, which ultimately always does happen when we're on a diet, is then that we feel we're really critical about ourselves, we're really judgmental, we're full of all this kind of self-loathing because, we've kind of blown it, and we get into this all or nothing type of mentality. So that's kind of what I mean by the food place, is where we attach moral judgment and we attach criticism to ourselves based on what our food choices are that we eat. So I suppose the first thing that I want to just touch on is, where did this even come from in the first place? And what I often will say to clients is there used to be a time when we didn't know what a macronutrient was, we didn't know what a calorie was, we didn't know about protein, carbs and unhealthy fats, and we did okay. So before we were able to measure all of these units, and 40, 50 years ago, people just ate in a way that nourished themselves and felt good. They tended to eat kind of 3 balanced square meals a day, and were full and were satisfied, and there was no kind of fretting around calorie intake and how many grams of fat were in a certain meal. So we've almost got into this kind of culture now where we have too much information about nutrition, and when we have too much information, it then can become incredibly confusing, but it also then leads us into that kind of obsessive thinking around food. So if you have been somebody who has been on and off diets, and perhaps you're one of these ones that has tried every diet going, you've done the keto, and you've done the intermittent fasting, and you've done Slimming World, and you've done Weight Watchers, that over the duration of all of these diets that you've done, you've probably picked up all of these other kind of rules around food as well. So how do you shake that off then? So I suppose whenever we are trying to get away from that kind of dieting mindset, because we know that when we're in that mindset of restriction and control, it always leads us into binge eating. So when we're trying to move away from that, how do you make choices around your eating without getting caught into any kind of cycle? And whenever we're practicing kind of from a mindful or an intuitive eating practice, we are giving ourselves unconditional permission to eat all foods. Now that usually will freak people out, because they assume that if they're given unconditional permission to eat all foods, that basically the wheels will come off and they will just eat absolutely everything around them. But what we actually know is that the practice of intuitive eating really teaches you how to make your food choices based on how you feel and what feels good for your body. So it doesn't mean that it's free reign and there's no consequences to your eating. What it really is a practice that's about teaching you how to tune into what your body actually needs, because your body has its own innate wisdom that knows when it's hungry, it knows how foods make it feel, and it knows when it's satisfied and it's full and it's had enough. But with years of kind of chronic dieting, we tend to have kind of disconnected, we tend to disconnect kind of the head from the rest of the body. And when we're dieting, we're thinking in the head because we're thinking about calories and we're thinking about macronutrients. Intuitive eating is very much about bringing it back into your body and learning to make decisions around how does this food make me feel. So you'll be making decisions with things like, well, what have I got on today? Is it a heavy day? Am I going to be busy? So do I need to prepare maybe nutritious foods that are going to be quick and easy and convenient because I'm not going to have a lot of time to eat them? You'll be thinking about things like, how is this food going to make me feel? Does this food tend to make me feel a bit tired and a bit sluggish afterwards? Or does this keep my energy levels stable? Does this keep me satisfied until my next meal? So it is very much a practice, and it is one that takes patience and takes compassion. And certainly, with a lot of clients that I will work with at times, that by the time they come to me and they're sitting in front of me, and they have had years of being on and off diets and are completely exasperated and want to learn how to stop dieting and to maintain kind of a healthy body weight, that there is a real kind of a desire and almost a desperation to be able to be an intuitive eater and to have a healthy relationship with food almost immediately. But like anything in life, it takes time and it takes practice. And whenever you're on a journey of recovery, it doesn't tend to look like this. It tends to be kind of all over the place. So what I would really encourage you to do is explore your own kind of self-talk that you have around food. Do you recognize that you have that food police going on in your mind where you're kind of like, oh no, that's bad, can't have that, and yes, that's really good and that's really healthy? Because it is those kind of rules, those strict rules that are bound around food, that tend to cause a lot of the issues that we have around food. So I hope this little video has been helpful to you. If you want to know any more about how to overcome emotional or binge eating and to make peace with food, then there is still time to sign up for my 5-day food freedom program. That's happening next Monday, the 18th of January. And if you want to know any more details, I will pop them in the link below. But have a great day.